Okay, welcome back. Basically this video is about building this Jaguar. A lot of people have built this now on YouTube and various places, and they always seem to do the desert colour scheme, which is all very well, but I prefer the standard grey-green one, which is this one. So that's how I built it. It's a change really. I have fond memories of the Jaguar. When I was a kid I used to go to air shows with my dad, and I remember seeing one particularly at an air show, and it took off. And this is when air shows were more, they weren't as safety conscious back in the 70s and the 80s. So the aircraft used to fly much closer to the flight line than they do now, and it took off. And this is the model I finished, by the way. It took off, and it basically went like that. So this is what you could see from about 100 yards away. You get exposed all the bottom of the aircraft like this, and the undercarriage were flapping in the breeze, and the thing just screamed down the runway at a knife edge, and it was like the most stunning thing I've ever seen at an air show. It was amazing. And that kind of stuck with me, and I've always liked Jaguars ever since, and I like the stance of the undercarriage, and just everything about them is just fantastic. So this is how we're going to do. The video is about building this. Okay, standard routine with the build the cockpit up first. It's just basically a few components, little side consoles need gluing on there. You can get a decal for them, but I think that to put the decal on properly on there, you'd have to cut the detail off really for it to work, so I didn't bother. Basically the seat, I've bought an aftermarket seat for this, so I'm not going to fit at the seat at this point. So I'm just building up all the components that go in on the fuselage sides, etc. Now these are all the extensive amount of parts you need for the undercarriage bays, which are kind of the, I don't know, a very poignant part of this model. They stand out a lot, and they're all painted chromate yellow, or basically a similar concept to that colour. So I've painted them all, and then to pick out the detail on the pipework I'm using a pencil, which is basically graphite, which works quite well really. I've done that before. To paint them would be very, very difficult, but if you're just very gentle with a pencil, they look quite effective, as you can see. And then you just plug all the pieces together like Lego. It's very, very good, is this. But it is better to paint them first, I think, or at least I did anyway. It worked out quite well. And you just clip them all together, and they'll fit really well like Lego blocks, and then you just glue them in place. And you basically get 3 structures of undercarriage bays to then install into the fuselage sides. Pick out some of the detail in different colours and things. You can go mad with a little tiny paintbrush painting out the pipework and things. And I've put some panel liner in there and various other things just to make it look a bit more realistic. And then you just glue them into the bays on each side, and paint around the inside of the bays with the chromate yellow again. It all fits really well. And they're the bays for the actual air brakes as well. This is the front wheel bay. Now the cockpit tub glues to the top of that wheel bay, so at this point I'm gluing it on there just so I can hold it easier. And just to pick out the detail, because it's black, I used tyre black from Tamiya, which is like it's not jet black, it's very, very, very dark grey. And I've picked it out with some dry brush silver paint just to emphasise some of the detail. And I did use a decal for the control panel, or the instrument panel, which worked very well. Now we're just fitting the rest of the bulkheads. That's the one where the engine nozzles go, or underneath they go there. And then you can join the 2 halves at this point. You need to be very careful when you join the 2 halves to make sure the bottom seam lines up. The top ones are fine. They all fit very well, but the bottom seam at the front of the cockpit needs to kind of join real close. It's very difficult to clean up, but it does fit very well actually. So if you're very careful when you glue it, you don't need to do any prep work afterwards, or any finishing work afterwards. And there's the finished cockpit with a little radar screen in there. Looks quite effective, I think. At this point you can fit the cockpit tub and wheel bay into the nose. Again, fits really well. And then join the two halves together. Obviously it's got a front, the nose is separate on this kit, but I think that's because in preparation for, they're going to do a two-seat version, it's inevitable, because you get two pilots in the kit as well, which is a bit of a giveaway really. I did drill the holes for the flare dispensers, which I realised I don't need to do, so I've had to fill those in again later on. And when you fit the nose on, just chamfer the edges of the back of the fuselage so it just kind of knits together. Again, if you're very careful, you can get that to join quite well. Join the two wing halves together. Now again, what I did there, mistake, is I forgot to drill the holes in the bottom of the wing halves for putting the pylons on, so at this point you can't see any pylon holes, well, neither could I, so I had to shine a very, very bright light through them afterwards to find out where the holes were. And then just bob the wing on. That fits really, really well. It fits so well you've got to kind of make sure you kind of hold it down and clamp it in place while you let the glue dry. It does say that in the instructions actually. Now at this point I'm just foiling the back end. You don't have to do this, it's just I quite like using foil and it's something I tend to do. If you want to know how to do this, go and look at some of my other videos. I'll put some links in the description. I'm using it for two reasons. I quite like the metal effect. It will get things added to it, but it's resistant to paint, which in most cases is a bad thing, but in this case it's good because you can overspray that to death and I can clean it off at will and it'll be fine. So it's quite good for part of the building process later on. You can also put rivet detail into it afterwards, which is quite nice, because this is one part of the kit that's lacking a bit of detail. The rivets are there, but they're very, very shallow, so I'm just adding to them a bit and enhancing them a bit more. And that's a finished tail end, if you like. I don't know what you call that bit really. Heat shield. This is the fin. I've painted it, I've primed it first, and I'm just adding a bit more. The rivets are there. They're very fine. The detail on this kit is very, very fine indeed, which is great from Airfix. They haven't gone too mad on the panel lines, but they are very subtle. So I'm just exaggerating them a little bit. Because if you look at the pictures of the sample photographs I'm using, they do shoulder these rivets, and I want them to show on this finished model as well. So I'm just going to make them a little bit deeper, so I can show all the little rivets I've picked out there. And then we are painted up as a test. That's kind of the look I'm going for. If you look at the picture I'm going to throw up, that's what I'm trying to emulate. Masked off the canopy now, and it's ready for priming. Masked off the wheelbase too, of course. And I've sprayed it black. I'm doing a black base on this one, which is not something I'm used to doing really, but for this look I think it needs it. And the camo is getting done freehand, so I'm basically roughly marking out where the demarcation lines are going to go. And then what I'm going to do is paint the grey first, and then, but I'm not painting grey all over, I'm just painting the grey on where it needs to be, because I need to keep the black paint underneath for the base so that it shows through on both different colours, as in the grey and the green. It's actually easier to do the masking this way, because you're not masking anything, you're just doing it by hand. I'm using I think it's a 0.2 this brush. It might be smaller actually, but it is very capable of doing much smaller, finer lines than the one I normally use. And it's just a case of building up the colour, but it's important not to kind of block it in completely, because you want to leave some of the black through, or at least showing through a bit, to give the effect that you need. It's quite easy actually, it's a lot easier than you think. It's you just basically block it in until you think it looks something like, but you have to do it all over, it takes a bit of time. You need to keep your paint nice and thin. I've got it probably, I don't know, it's not 50-50, it's probably 70-30 70 thinner and 30 paint, and I'm running the airbrush at something like 80 psi or something like that. You still get tip dry quite a lot doing this. It's you've got to keep clearing the brush out all the time. It's quite frustrating sometimes, but also quite rewarding as well. I didn't mark the pencil lines out all over the model because it would just rub off with your fingers or whatever. If you had gloves on even, it'd still rub off. So just do a bit at a time. Anyway, that's the first part done on the nose, obviously. So let's get the rest of it done. Quite like doing it really. It's quite a nice process. I'm just checking where the actual intake cover goes there. I made a mistake at this point because I should have fitted the intakes before I started painting it. That will show you later on in the build. I wanted to paint behind them though. I basically just got carried away and started painting all of it. But I should have painted behind them, put the intake covers on, filled them all and then painted on. Anyway, we move on. I'm doing the green now. So the green you've got to be more accurate when you're doing the painting to get the demarcation line quite accurate. Same process as putting the grey down, but you just have to get the demarcation line first established and then fill in behind it. You can keep adding and taking away paint as well, which I did do throughout the whole process. Working out where the actual camo goes, when you look at the instructions on the that Airfix provide, they kind of don't make sense sometimes. They probably do, but your eye tends to play tricks on you really. You have to work out where the lines are. You can see it from one dimension and you look at it from the side and they don't seem to match up and you think, where the heck do these go? So you have to kind of work it out as you go along, and they're certainly not super accurate by any means, but in reality the real ones weren't either. I think they just kept patching them up and changing them anyway. Okay, at this point I've realised I made a mistake because I fitted the intakes but they don't fit as well as I want them to. I just assumed that they would fit as well as the rest of the kit does, and they don't really. So they need blending in better into the rest of the airframe. So it's not a big deal, I just have to kind of cut them back. I'm having to rescribe all the panel lines first before I start sanding anything because I don't want to lose the detail. So if you make the panel line deeper than it needs to be, then you can sand it and then keep the detail, and then you get the idea. So it needs just trimming back. I'm using a scriber there just to establish the bits I do need to keep. And it needs a bit of surgery on there to make those blend in properly. Okay, there we are, sanding back. It looks a bit horrendous, but it's not a big deal. What needs to happen now, I need to repaint black paint over the top of that area. I've added some little squares of foil just to add in the detail. There's like a little square panel on top of each one that's completely lost in the moulding, so I've added some squares in there that I can just create that bit of detail. Okay, these are the pylons that I'm just working on at the moment. I find the trailing edge is a little bit thick on these, so I've just thinned them down a little bit with a file and some sandpaper. Okay, at this point I've started adding the decals. Typical modern jet aircraft, got loads of decals on there. I didn't add all of them, so because by the time it's been weathered so much you won't see half the tiny ones, but it's just definitely a case of death by decal, putting these things on. I'm also finding the Airfix, I don't know if they've changed them recently, but they're very good decals when you put them on, and they do, you know, bed in very nicely, but they're very, very delicate now, and you've got to be careful putting them on there so they don't move around easily, and they tend to curl up on the soles very easily, so it's not the same decals that I'm used to with Airfix for sure. But yeah. I masked up the canopy. It's dead easy to make your own mask for this canopy because it's such a simple shape. Giving it a coat of black first, just to give it the inside cockpit colour. And then we've just added the camo as appropriate. At this point it can be fitted to the model. I give the model a coat of matte varnish first, and then I've matte varnished the canopy, so I don't want to paint it again. So and now it can be glued onto the model. Just experimenting with a little bit of scumbling. To call it scumbling, this it's a technique that oil painters have used for centuries, just to add a bit of lightness, if you like, or change the tone of something. It's a bit like glazing, but you can't glaze with white really, so you can get the call scumbling. But yeah, it's too strong at the moment. I've backed it off camera. I've faded it back again a little bit, but it just adds a little bit more definition to the grey. I notice on most sample photographs of worn Jaguars anyway, if you like, the green seems to stand sunlight better than the grey does, so the grey tends to fade more, or looks more obviously faded than the green does. So I thought I'd give it a go, see if I could emulate that look. You can remove this at will, as long as it doesn't dry. You can just take it off again. And I did take quite a bit of it off again. You can add in water streaks with a bit of thinner on a brush as well, just so I can create some effects with it. It's quite fun to do. Just fitting the pylons now. I've put magnets in the pylons actually, just so I can take the ordnance off as and when I want to, if I want to. So I'm not sure I want it with the ordnance on, I'm not really yet, so we'll see how it goes. There with this now. I've been waiting for parts to come actually. I reckon I've just about got this done as regards the finish I want. I can't achieve the finish that I originally showed on the pictures because if you make it look like that, it'd look horrendous. I started to add things to it and it started to look too, I don't know, messy, I think is the way to describe it. So I'm just going to build it as a normal production aircraft, you know, that's in service, so sort of thing. Anyway, so I've been waiting for resin parts to come. This is the, I was going to zoom in. That's a resin seat, which is an absolutely beautiful little thing. Got the seat belts and everything, which is obviously the Airfix ones never have seat belts in. But it's a beautiful little thing, is that's going to be nice to paint up. And I've got the engines as well, so you get all the proper engine parts as well. So that's what that looks like when it's glued together. It's a complete replacement part for all the engine parts that Airfix provide. And that's the outer covers, and then that's the actual nozzles. They look very good when they're painted up. I've also got undercarriage legs which come with the brake pipes on. I decided to use that one, that's alright. You don't use all of the undercarriage legs, it's just part of it. So you graft on the bit from the Airfix kit there, and then that's got the brake pipes on. I could have replaced those, but I didn't on the original one. But I didn't use these are the main undercarriage legs, and these have got brake pipes on as well. But I've had trouble getting these to fit accurately, so I'm sure they will, but I just can't be bothered faffing about with them. So what I've done, I've used these as a pattern so I know where the brake pipes go, and I've just made my own. So that's the original Airfix leg, and I've just made my own brake pipes, and they're good enough for me. So I'm going to get those done now. I'll get all these painted up. I'll be glad to get the undercarriage on, because every time I pick it up I have to be very careful with it and stuff like that. So yeah, it's getting to the point where it needs finishing just now. There we go, that's the exhaust pipes made up. Very, very nice detail in those. Very nice indeed. I'll get those fitted now. And there they are, fitted to the model. Fantastic. They're quite a tight fit in there, they're not actually glued in, they're just pushed in
Took quite a bit of getting in actually. I should have maybe cleaned them up a bit before I put them in there, but they're okay. Quite happy with those. I've painted up the resin seat. Absolutely fantastic thing this. It really does paint up easily as well. Did a bit of dry brushing on it just to bring out some of the detail. Some of the detail on that thing is so fine, it's quite remarkable. I tried to stick it in with a bit of blue tack, but it looks like it fits in there, but it just fell out, so it's now super glued in permanently. Bit of a close-up of the seating situation there. The aftermarket parts for this cost nearly £30, which is probably about nearly half as much of the kit itself, but I think it's been well worth the investment. Not necessarily sure about the undercarriage legs, but the engines and the seat for sure. Now this is the undercarriage finish now. It's quite a complex structure, is this. It's quite easy to fit, but it just takes a lot of doing, and painting it was near impossible to actually paint it and fit it, because we couldn't. You had to fit each individual part and then make sure each of each leg or strut fit in the right place. So it was just easy to brush paint the parts really. I just used some aqueous semi-gloss grey, and it brush paints really nice if you thin it enough. So the whole undercarriage is brush painted, which I don't normally do that, but it worked out quite well in this particular case. Quite happy with that. Okay, this is how I paint wheels. I don't know how anybody else does it, but tyre black. I've pre-painted the hub, obviously. It's just tyre black, and I put it on very thick, but it's very thin paint. I just let it capillary into the actual, I don't know, the rim on the wheel. Just about all wheels on kits now, I've got quite a pronounced rim so that the paint won't go over the edge. So you just flood it in there, let it capillary into the edges. And I do all the wheels like this. I don't want other people bother with masks for wheels, because you don't need them. At least I don't use them anyway. That's it done now, you just fill the rest of it in. It's quite easy. Okay, I'm just fitting the brake pipes. They're quite prominent, these brake pipes. When you look at Jaguars, you can see them very obviously, so I think it's a bit of detail that needs adding really. So I'm just using some copper wire from a piece of wire from a flex. You just strip it down and pull the wires out. Very, very thin wires. Unfortunately, you can't get them in the right colour, so you just drill little holes. I think it's 0.1mm holes, and then just super glue them in place. And unfortunately got to paint them black, which is a pain, but yeah, it's worked out okay. Okay, this is the front landing gear door. It's got two lights in it, and the lights are those little two lenses here. I'm not going to use those. What I'm going to do, this is a chrome pen, which I will paint in there, like so. A decent amount of paint in there. I'll let that dry for 24 hours actually, and I'll put some UV resin in there, and that'll create the lenses as opposed to the plastic ones. Okay, progress has been made. Fitted all little ancillary parts now. Everything that needs fitting to this model on the airframe side is now done. I've added some removed from flight banners. I've made those out of masking tape and painted them. You can get commercially available ones, which I'm going to do actually, because it's got so many on this. If you do fit them all, that they're a bit of a pain to make. So I'm adding these little bits of detail because it is going to be parts of aeroplane. But everything that sticks out or that's a weapon has got one of these on it. So there's quite a lot. So the next job now, I need to fit all the undercarriage doors, which I've all painted up. Various colours that they need to be. There's quite a lot of them on this model. And then they've air brakes to fit. So then once they're done, we've got I fitted the canopy, and I've actually fitted it closed because it doesn't come with any detail inside the canopy to make it look appropriate for it to be open. It needs like mirrors in it and handles and all sorts of things, which it doesn't come with. And I quite like it closed anyway because it's a very clear canopy and you can see inside the cockpit very well with it closed. So I decided to close it anyway. So we're getting there really now, it's nearly finished. So I'm going to get all these parts fitted on it and then I'll be back. Okay, please excuse the glove. It's getting a bit fragile as this now. I've added all the undercarriage doors. Epic job doing that. It's especially putting the air brakes on. The air brakes are a nightmare to get the little actuator rods in the back end there. Yeah, fiddly. Super glue's your friend for these doors, I'm afraid. You can't glue them on any other way really. But yeah, they go on. It's just a bit of patience. Such a dominant part of the model, as I've said earlier. But yeah, they need doing. So yeah, that's all done now. All we need to do now is put these little babies on. Now these were quite hard to do, you know, because the decals, I don't know what it is with Airfix. I've built quite a lot of Airfix kits in my time, and the decals were always relatively easy to work with, but now the very good decals, when they're on, they're great. They don't silver or anything, but they're quite difficult to put on. I find they are anyway. I don't know if it's just me or what, but if you don't get them in the right place, they're very difficult to reposition. Glossy or matte, it doesn't make a difference what surface it is. And if you get that, if they curl up a little bit, they just kind of grab themselves and just curl up into a ball and just become a nightmare. And the only way to deal with that is to get the whole decal, throw it in a little tub of water and just let it settle out, and then pick it back up again with the carrier that it came from, and then start again. They are quite tough though, they don't break easily, but they're a nightmare to put on. I hate them now. As when they're on, they're fine, but putting them on, I don't like them at all. Anyway, we digress. I'm going to put the ordnance on now, and then I'm going to call it just about done. I might put the bombs on at a later date, but I don't like the bombs. They're the fins on them are too fat and chunky, and I just don't like looking. They need a bit of work to make them something like, or some aftermarket resin ones would look better or something. But Jaguars that don't necessarily have the bombs on, but they always have these tanks on, so they're going to go on now. Right, there we go, it's completed. It's taken quite a while to build as this model. Thoroughly enjoyable to do though. I would say just about all of it is, it's a great kit. I can't complain about it at all. It's one of Airfix's best ones to date, I think. I have added some aftermarket parts, as I've mentioned in the videos before. I put an aftermarket seat in there. You don't need to do that. I honestly don't think you need to do that. The only thing you're getting from doing that is the seat belts are on it, and I just wish Airfix or other manufacturers would put some facility in there for seat belts. A seatbelt decal doesn't work on this sort of seat because of the way it folds onto the seats and things. But other than that, the seat itself that comes in the kit is very, very good. And you could fabricate some seat belts, or maybe you can buy some PE ones, I don't know. So if I was doing it again, I probably wouldn't buy the seat. It's a nice thing though, I've got to say, it's very, very good indeed. The undercarriage, was it worth doing that? I don't think so, because apart from it giving me the idea as to where to put a pipe were, but if you look at photographs you can see that anyway, so I wouldn't have bothered with undercarriage either, because I could fabricate those myself as well. Jet pipes, yes, because I don't know if I can show it on photographs, but inside the jet pipe there's a load of detail inside that you can see down there, and they do look very good. So I think out of all the PE parts I've used, all the three PE parts I've used, the jet pipes are the ones I would say are worth buying. The other ones you can live without, for sure. Bits to watch when you're building it. And again, it's like anything, once you build a kit you know it better than the first time you do it, and you would do it better the second time round. This area here, when you fit the intakes, this if you look at real Jaguars, there's no line there, there's no step in it, if you like. It's just a smooth continuous thing there, and there's a square panel just there, and there's a square panel, it's not square, it's oblong shaped. I was pointing to this thing here, and that's moulded in, and it's kind of cut across the mould lines, and it's, I don't know, it's messy. I don't think it's very good, so I put a bit of foil on top of those to kind of hide that join, if you like. And it does need blending in quite well, so if you're gonna, when you fit that, just be mindful of it when you do that area of the jet pipe. But it's a small thing, it's not a big deal. It's not difficult at all. You just have to be way aware of it, or think about it when you're doing it, I suppose. It's quite a complex, the undercarriage arrangement's quite messy, not messy, there's a lot of parts to it, and it's very well engineered and very well designed and stuff, but it's quite fiddly to do, and I found it very difficult to, it would be very difficult to fit the undercarriage and spray it and then paint and fit it afterwards, so you have to kind of fit it and then paint it afterwards, and doing that with an airbrush without messing everything else up and masking it would be quite hard, so I ended up brush painting the undercarriage, and it works out fine, no problem whatsoever. I've started brush painting things quite a lot more than I used to do, actually, and if you get your paint thin enough, it's fine. Everything else, I'm trying to think of anything that was wrong with it. There's nothing really wrong with it at all. These little antennas on the top here, if I can get any closer than that, they're a bit thicker, I think, so I've made new ones. I just made them a bit thinner. That's about all I did with that. I thinned down the trailing edges of the pylons, which you can hardly see. You can't see them hardly, can you, really? The pitot tube, and that is an area that is quite poor, actually. I mean, this part of the pitot tube's okay, and you can't see this part now because I've put this flag on it, but when the pitot tube comes out of the box, it's just ready to fall off. It's so thin and fragile and bendy, it's like a piece of elastic, and it snapped off almost immediately, so I did make a new one, which you can't see. I made it out of brass and turned it up on the lathe and put a new one on there, but yeah, I didn't actually, but it's there, but you can't see it. But other than that, there's nothing wrong with this kit whatsoever. It's fantastic, and I would quite happily build another one. I'm looking forward to the new one coming out. Well, they're bound to do it. It's there's parts in this kit that facilitates it already. They're going to build a 2-seat version of it, which I think could be striking. It'd be a fantastic model, and you could build that with as a clean build with shiny paintwork. I reckon they do a black one. I think that'll look fantastic. So anyway, that's me waffling on at the end of this build. I really enjoyed building it. I did want to build it a lot more weathered than this, but I didn't manage to do that. It was starting to look a bit tatty and looked a bit over the top, really, so I abandoned that idea. I mean, it has got little bits of weathering on the fin. I experimented with a bit of distressing on the paintwork, if you like, but I didn't succeed. The mission failed miserably, I suppose. But yeah, I'm very happy with the finish of it anyway. It's turned out really nice. So there we go, stills to follow. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.